Grand Theft Auto 5 has been around for over a decade now. It is one of the most sold games in history and to this day still has hundreds and thousands of people playing it every day. The game, however, has also seen a large amount of controversy over the years, one of which is its depiction of toxic masculinity. Today, we'll explore how each of Grand Theft Auto 5's three main characters demonstrate toxic masculinity. First of all, let's establish what toxic masculinity is. Toxic masculinity is a set of beliefs, attitudes, and behaviours that are associated with traditional expectations of masculinity. These beliefs can be harmful to both men and women. Toxic masculinity often involves the idea that men should be dominant, aggressive, and unemotional, while avoiding anything that might be seen as weak or feminine. Grand Theft Auto 5 is an open-world action-adventure video game developed and published by Rockstar Games. It was released in 2013 and is set in the fictional city of Los Santos. The three main playable characters in the game, Michael, Franklin, and Trevor, can all be seen perpetuating traits of toxic masculinity, portraying that men should be violent and dominant, and that women are just objects to be used and discarded. Michael DeSanta is the first character we meet in the game, and is also the most complex. Michael is a former bank robber who has attempted to move on from his previous life of crime, living in witness protection with his family. Michael is a family man, but in all the wrong ways. He's controlling, abusive, and violent towards his wife and children. Michael's relationship with his wife, Amanda, is particularly problematic. He's constantly belittling her and treating her like she's inferior to him. He also tries to control her every move, even going so far as to hire a private investigator to follow her around. In addition to the abusive behaviour towards his wife, Michael is also violent towards others. He has a history of robbing banks and killing people, and he doesn't hesitate to resort to violence when he feels threatened. This is a classic example of toxic masculinity, where violence is seen as a way to assert dominance. A useful reference for understanding how Michael portrays toxic masculinity is the book The Masculinity by Jennifer Siebel Newsom. In this book, Newsom explores the societal pressures that encourage men to conform to rigid and harmful gender stereotypes, such as the belief that real men are aggressive, unemotional, and dominant. Michael's character embodies many of these stereotypes. He struggles to connect emotionally with others, including his family, and often relies on alcohol and drugs to cope with his feelings. Overall, Michael's character is a powerful representation of the negative effects of toxic masculinity. Next up, we have Franklin Clinton, a young gang member who's trying to make a better life for himself. Franklin is also guilty of demonstrating toxic masculinity, but in a different way to Michael. While he is not without his own issues, Franklin's character generally presents a more nuanced view of masculinity in the game. Franklin is constantly trying to prove himself to his gang and to other characters. He's always talking about how tough he is and how he's not afraid of anything. This desire to prove himself leads him to engage in violent behaviour, such as stealing cars, killing rival gang members, all for the selfish benefit of himself. Franklin also objectifies women, viewing them only as sexual objects to be used for his pleasure. He frequently visits the strip club and engages in one-night stands with women he meets there. This behaviour reinforces the idea that women are only valuable for their bodies and not for their intelligence or personality. One article by David Leonard and Kashona Gray, titled African American Masculinity in Grand Theft Auto 5, argues that Franklin's character reflects a ghetto masculinity that is created with hypermasculinity, aggression, and a focus on material success. For example, they point out that Franklin's use of violence is to establish his reputation within the game's criminal underworld, as well as his pursuit of wealth and status through criminal activity. Franklin's character is a complex representation of the toxic masculinity and its effects on individuals and society. While he is not wholly defined by harmful gender stereotypes, he still embodies certain aspects of it that can perpetuate gender inequality, violence, and selfish material success. Finally, there's Trevor Phillips. Trevor is the embodiment of hegemonic toxic masculinity, encapsulating the essence of the Grand Theft Auto franchise. Trevor is violent, unsympathetic, and incredibly misogynistic. Like Michael and Franklin, Trevor also objectifies women, treating them as disposable objects to be used for his pleasure. He's a frequent visitor to the strip club and is often with prostitutes, similar to Franklin. He has no respect towards women's authority or consent. Most notable, however, is Trevor's anger. He is incredibly abusive towards everyone he interacts with, both verbally and physically. He's extremely violent, using murder and torture as a means of asserting his dominance over others. He views violence as a way of solving problems, and he has no qualms about using it to get what he wants. One mission in the game, titled By the Book, received large amounts of controversy because of its glorification of violence. In this mission, Trevor tortures a man named Mr. K, forcing the player to push the man to the point of death. Towards the end of the mission, Trevor drives Mr. K to the airport, admitting the ineffectiveness of torture and how it is only used to assert ourselves. According to Rockstar, By the Book was originally supposed to be a political commentary on the inefficiency of torture, but ultimately just reinforced the use of pointless violence.
The media and the government would have us believe that torture is some necessary thing. We need it to get information, to assert ourselves. Did we get any information out of you?
I would have told you everything!
Exactly!
Overall, audiences decode the use of toxic masculinity in Grand Theft Auto 5 in different ways, depending on their individual perspectives and experiences. While some players recognise the problematic nature of the game's depiction of masculinity, others saw it as a natural aspect of the violent and criminal world of the game. There was, however, one case in December of 2014, where a Change.org petition was created in hopes of pulling Grand Theft Auto 5 off of Target shelves. The petition argued against the use of sexual violence in the game, with players having the option to kill prostitutes directly after sexual acts. Petition creator Nicole Survivor made claims that the game encourages players to murder women for entertainment. The petition gained a large amount of popularity, and soon enough, over 40,000 people had signed. A few days later, the Australian Classification Board argued that the game constituted prostitution that is violent and aggressive, and that it exceeded the classification guidelines for the highest rating allowed in Australia, effectively rendering the game as illegal to sell or distribute. For almost a full year, Grand Theft Auto 5 was pulled from Australian Target and Kmart shelves. In November 2015, the game returned to shelves when the PS4 and Xbox One versions were released, where Rockstar addressed and fixed the classification issues. In conclusion, Grand Theft Auto 5's portrayal of its three main characters as embodiments of toxic masculinity perpetuate harmful gender norms and reinforce problematic behaviours and attitudes. The game's emphasis on violence, aggression, and hypermasculinity reinforce the notion that these traits are integral components of masculinity and can contribute to the normalization of harmful behaviours such as sexual violence and the objectification of women. The game's massive popularity and cultural impact has contributed to the normalization of toxic masculinity in the gaming community and even beyond. However, there have also been discussions and critiques of the game's portrayal of masculinity, which have helped raise awareness of the issue and promote more positive models of masculinity. In the end, it is important to keep in mind the intentional satirical nature of the Grand Theft Auto series, and although the series can create problems through its use of toxic masculinity, it has also created some of the most memorable characters in gaming history. Please excuse my very sloppy driving skills, and thank you for watching.